It's always fun being here with you at the Larchmont Mamaroneck Summit here at the wonderful Northwest Diner on the third day of Hanukkah, right? So again, so I got it all in, right?
Yeah.
I already got my Boca Tov in this morning, right? But I'm having fun traveling with the town supervisor just a few weeks ago, coming back from Israel. So again, Boca Tov again. Yesterday we just signed the budget. Emily Saltzman is our Deputy Director of Operations, and she is doing a fantastic job, and she looks forward to continuing the work. And as she is a new resident, a returning resident to the town, right?
Yeah.
Right? So,
You can never leave.
yeah, this is like, some organizations that we know that just keep calling you back, right? And in this case, it's certainly really good. So we just signed the budget yesterday. It's a $2.5 billion budget.
Wow.
Tax cap compliant budget, has a lot of things that we had to do from a tightening the belt perspective. And all the municipalities are going through the same thing. Because of the challenges at the federal level that we don't know whether or not folks are going to be with us or not. I had a whole list of things that, thank you Peggy for sending that list, and Leslie for sending that list ahead of time, so I knew exactly the kind of questions that we might get, right? It's always good seeing Lois. But it is warm and toasty in here, right? So I hope you have your bagels all warmed up, and whether you have lox. Wow. Okay. Well, Fabian here, also here with loves the lox here, usually does that on Fridays. He saves it for then. But yes, so we had our budget, and there's a lot of challenges in there. It was an 8% cut on, of course, almost every department. We cut out 180 positions. There wasn't any layoffs. But at the end of the day, we are still trying to balance the things out, because we didn't go into our savings account, we didn't go into fund balance, we didn't do all those things, and there has not been any feedback from anyone that said we understand the challenges that are available. This particular budget, on an average home, we'll do the average home here in the Larchmont Mamaroneck area, that is $6 a month more to do the kind of services that we do for Westchester County, and whether that's investing in our parks infrastructure, whether it's dealing with wastewater recovery facilities or water resource recovery facilities, whatever heck name we call it now, dealing with the flooding issues, trying to deal with affordable housing, and dealing with the things as far as it was concerned. As far as, good morning, Catherine Parker.
Yeah.
Right. She's in her last 2-week stretch here as a legislator, right? And it's always good seeing her too. But we're going to continue to do that level of investment across the board, making sure in the services that we have to do, that we're mandated or required to do, that we're doing the resources necessary and investing in that. But with that, let me do the questions that you had, right?
Go ahead.
See, I got a list.
So does Santa.
Well, I hope I know. I'm making sure I don't have like coal in my stocking, right? From all of the Santa things that are going on. Wait. What do you get on the third day of Hanukkah?
Nothing special.
You get it tomorrow, but today's the second.
Okay, you get it tomorrow?
No, it's the third night.
Third night. Third night.
Today's the second day.
Second day, third night, right?
Right, correct.
Okay. So is there like something special today?
No.
No?
Extra candy.
Wait, Jane said there is.
We have our menorah lighting tonight for the town.
Oh, yes.
At the Hanukkah Rink, 4:45.
Oh, okay.
3 to 5, there's free skating and all kinds of games and potato pancakes and jelly donuts. And then at 4:45, we're lighting the menorah in the rink because the ground is covered with snow and it's cold. It's a beautiful rink. So we hope you'll all be there.
For 4:45 at Hamet's Rink for tonight's menorah lighting for the third night, right? Third evening. All right. So the first question happened to do about ice. All right. So what's been happening in the county in respect to ice activities? The thing is, we actually got an email. One of our team members sent out the New York State look at the number of ice arrests around New York State. So, for fun, Mike, good morning. Sorry, Michael, right? For Westchester County in 2024, do you know how many ICE arrests there were?
None.
Give him another bagel. There were none in 2024. But surprisingly, you would think about how many arrests were there in 2025. ICE arrests, not the ICE activity. There's lots of activity. But how many actual ICE arrests according to Homeland Security?
200.
Way less.
2.
One. One so far this year. So one of the challenges as far as there is a big difference between what the perception is and the Emily likes to say this word cruelty, right? The cruelty of things that are happening in the federal government. We had Homeland Security operated in Westchester County for many, many years. It didn't just start yesterday, didn't start in 2025. What the difference is how the things are happening with ICE. What used to happen is the municipality would get a call, they would get a call from the Homeland Security folks and said, hey, we're coming in, we're looking for XYZ, we just want to know we'll be operating in the area. And you rarely heard about, Homeland Security officers getting hurt and a lot of that didn't happen. This year is different, right? And that part of the process is different, and that's the challenge. Again, if I told you at the beginning, like someone thought 200 arrests had happened, and we know we've seen ICE activity, we've seen people being and living in fear and not coming out and not being able to go to work and have kids in school and all those kind of things that happen. And the reality on the ground is that there's one person that's been arrested, so there's a lot of other things that are happening around that, and those are the challenges. It's not just the ICE activities themselves, it's the fear that's been put into several communities as far as being able to do the process. Because everyone says, let's make sure everyone's following the rules, let's do it the right way, right? Whenever you're in a court, right, there's supposed to be certain things that happen. If you're in court and you're responding to what things you're supposed to do, checking in when you're supposed to, and doing everything and just fighting as hard as you can to get across the line to become a citizen, and you shouldn't be worried about showing up for your appointment. Yes, sir.
What are we doing about enforcing safe spaces rules? Schools, hospitals, courts?
Well, the schools, hospital, and courts used to be safer spaces than they are right now. I know our Attorney General, Letitia James, has over 31 different lawsuits that they filed. Whenever an activity happens here in Westchester, there's our intergovernmental team that talks to the AG's office, working with the county attorney. In Westchester, we have the Immigrant Protection Act that says how we're going to utilize resources to move forward. And those were not new. When I was here last year, I think we talked about that. It's like Homeland Security, the Immigrant Protection Act didn't happen here in 2025 or 2020. It happened in 2018. Right, in 2019 from a executive order first, and then a law that was adopted by the Board of Legislators. It said how we interact, and that was in the first Trump administration, and clearly they understood how to work with judicial warrants, and they did that. Now, in our scenario now, they want to try to do that for New York for All, and try to have New York for All and be able to have that enforcement. New York for All looks exactly like our Immigrant Protection Act, which is one of the challenges for us, because we have a great activist community here in Westchester that says to us, Ken, we need to get this done at the state. I'm like, we have this done here, right? And yes, we are going to be able to advocate and say to our state legislators and state delegations, you should look at this particular law. We think it's a good thing. That's why we have it here in Westchester. And certainly for local municipalities, they have been able to decide whether they want to have their own version of that. But no one wants to be a target. And in our case, we have $700 million of federal funding that's on the line, that's impacted over time. So we continue to move forward and try to make a difference. So that was that. Hopefully I answered the question.
Yes, thank you.
All right, any other questions on ICE before we keep moving? Again, working with our organizations, whether it's Neighbors Link, you know, I had a chance to go visit and hang out with the folks at Neighbors Link and look at the things that people have done as far as getting their resources together, being able to see the challenges that people have and just living. We have Feed in Westchester, and Emily keeps moving around on me. Emily spends a lot of time with our food insecurity or food security folks, Sue Weissman, and making sure that we're trying to get as much money as we can to the food pantries. When the SNAP impact happened, and there were two different impacts for SNAP. First, there were rule changes that were done in HR 1 that had one set of things happen from the state of New York. We had a waiver that was in place that would have been in place until to March of next year. The Trump administration canceled that waiver and said on November 1st that we needed to have these new rules in place, work rules, etc. Then, in addition to that, we had the shutdown, so we had multiple things happening at one time. But for us, at the end of the day, we put additional money into food pantries, $50,000 that we gave directly to Feeding Westchester, so that the food pantry did not need to buy extra food. But working with the board members of the Feeding Westchester organization while they're searching for their new executive director, to do a lot of different things to make sure that people can actually get to the food in those safe spaces that you asked about, whether it was a church or a shul, a place of, you know, whatever that is, to make sure that people felt safe to get there. On our block, Quaropris around is the Thomas Slater Center, and we have people that line up on 2 times a week. And for me, one of the things we tried to do was try from an administration perspective to figure out different ways of getting people the resources and food in a food insecure way. That included us working with a vendor to try to do some vending machine kind of things so people can order ahead and they can show up at a different time. We did things like locking this in, you know, the church doors where the pantry was, and in this, it is just an awful thing to do, as we see in so many different communities where youth like living in fear. It's like, no, we shouldn't be living in fear here in our little bubble here in Westchester, and we all fight very hard every day to make sure that happens. So we have to continue to do that work with that. Let's see. And you had a separate question about it as it deals with public safety. Most of you know already, and you don't, my dad was a cop in New York City. He was a sergeant in New York City. He's been passed away for 20 years, so it's been a long time. But at the same time, from a police perspective, part of the Immigrant Protection Act was created. Part of the reason we created the Immigrant Protection Act was so that people felt comfortable in going to law enforcement. And that's kind of a challenge around the world right now. You didn't ask this question about like what's my biggest fear, what's the thing that keeps me up at night and worrying about. What I keep worrying about the most is that people have lost faith in the place for government in an operational perspective to feel that the right thing's gonna happen, you know, that they're gonna get some kind of justice. They're gonna have someone hearing their voice and standing up for them and saying, listen, this is a problem, we can't have this happen, and our systems will take care of that. And whether that's our police at first, our police, and then going through our court systems, because when people feel that there's nothing they can do, they take it on themselves, and that's a bad place to be, right? That no one trusts the system anymore. So that's part of the reason we did the Immigrant Protection Act, so people felt comfortable enough to go to law enforcement, go to the police department, go to someone and report something, and whether that's wage theft, which happens a lot, whether that is people that are being forced to work, whether that's someone that's paying additional rent or not paying additional rent under threat of being turned over to ICE, or whether they're being assaulted. There's a lot of things that happen that people just don't see, that if they don't trust the system. So we really work hard every day to make sure that everyone understands that the police, our municipalities, our government, our county, our local municipalities, the town, the village and hamlets, the state, all of those things, that we're gonna fight as hard as they can for the rights that we have in our Constitution and in our state laws. So we're gonna keep doing that.
Sorry.
Yes, ma'am.
I just wanted to ask that New York for All, where is that exactly? Is that going to pass? Is that?
No, New York for All is another opportunity at the state level. They have not adopted that, so, and the state legislators are up this year, so that I'm sure they'll come around and talk, you know, and let you know what they think about that. I will tell you, I won't quote who said it to me, right? So, because that'd be bad, right? But here's the challenge, that you have, whatever thing is happening, you have advocacy groups out there talking about that and say, let's do that, right? And then people are like, yeah, that sounds like a good idea, so they make changes in the law, right? Think about bail reform and those kind of things. And then something bad happens, and that one bad thing stops all of them from thinking about it, because someone's like, you did this, right? And the reason that this thing happened is because you had bail reform, right? Well, no, that wasn't the case. This person was a criminal and they got caught doing something, and it wasn't because they didn't have their penalties paid. It was like, well, we made this law because of X, and now there's an unintended consequence, and then people do that. So that's the challenge in that. And for us, you know, someone asked us to protest. There were protests going on in Yonkers at Andre Stewart Cousins' office. I'm like, in Westchester, we have the Immigrant Protection Act, which is New York for All, and there's not going to be a day I'm standing outside protesting against my senator, a personal senator, by the way, right? And saying that I can pick up the phone and call her, and we can talk through things and say, let's understand why we make these things up. So that's the challenge with those kind of laws. It's like, yes, we make this good law, and then there's an unintended consequence, and now it's the law's fault, as opposed to saying it was just a bad person, right, that did something that was awful, so. Yes.
If I
Yes,
could
sir.
just follow up,
Sure,
yeah,
sure.
on New York for All, because I know it's a very hot topic among the legislators who are starting up in January, and nothing happened legislatively at all in 2025, and despite the facts, you know, cited by DHS about one arrest, we just had last month a presentation from CRC here where they talked about 25 people disappearing from the community. So it's not just about arrests.
That's right.
And the Immigrant Protection Act that we have here in Westchester obviously does not apply to municipalities, and so there's no force of law. So that, you know, something could happen that because of the absence of that legislation. So my question is, you talking about, you know, if some bad things can happen, and obviously the legislators are afraid of political consequences, are you using your voice as somebody who presides over a county that has legislation like this to try to influence the legislature?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. So thank you, Jay, for the question. At the end of the day, the question was, I'm sorry you didn't hear it. I got to make sure to pass the mic this time, right? The question was regarding, had it really been action in the state legislature? There's nothing that moved forward. There's been lots of discussions, but they haven't moved forward with the New York for All, and it doesn't apply to local municipalities. But I would tell you, in hearing from a WMOA meeting, the Westchester Municipal Officials Association, because of the vindictiveness of our federal government, right, there's a real and legitimate fear about putting a target on yourself. We had this law in place, so it's easy for me to be able to articulate it, since I tried to advance it, and we were going to advance it. Rob Astorino vetoed it when I was on the Board of Legislators, and then when we had with first George and now me be able to do this from an executive position, and then from executive order, and then the legislature adopting a law, it's easy for us to talk through it. You know, the fight again we have with them is with our correction officers, you know, who want to do some additional things, and we're like, no, there's a law, this is how it works. And again, from 2018 going forward, they understood how to make this work. The federal government understands what a judicial warrant is, and instead of firing people and having them laid off in the Justice Department, let them do their job and to go to a judge, blah, 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 blah. So yes, we continue to talk to them about that, but there's nothing that is scarier for elected officials for something to happen in their community that is on a law that they adopted and not be able to articulate it. I will do a different place, because it's Somers, right, where there was the domestic violence killing, right, that was from someone that was in the country. illegally for 18 years. It didn't happen. And there was a whole series of stories. I know I was personally attacked for it. It's like, Ken, you know, it was your fault. I was like, if there was somebody that got caught, if someone committed a crime, we want them to pay the penalty for that crime. In this case, the crime was murder. It wasn't saying, oh, this person was here undocumented, they should be sent home, right? They should be sent to another country. No, you should pay the penalty, and then after that penalty, you should get deported. But right now, you should be paying that penalty for that child. It was a teenager who was shot and killed, you know, and his mom was shot, and his brother was also shot as well. So again, we want them to do that. So when I was in Somers, having this conversation, having the information, one of the things that you know, and I really appreciate from all of you, you expect all of your elected officials that are around the table here today to be able to not just to be able to talk surface level, but go down in depth and have conversations. In Somers, I was like, we didn't want the person to be deported. I wanted them to face their crimes, right? And at the end of that, the family members accepted this plea. That was in the last month and a half. Maybe some of you saw that last month and a half, that person is in jail. The family agreed to the plea deal that would keep them in jail for a very long time. And now they moved on. And when we did that, we were able to have the conversation that Jenny, as you're talking about, with our local elected officials who were up in Somers area, the assembly members and the senators in that area, and said, hey, this had nothing to do with the Immigrant Protection Act. This person wasn't here for that, because the law wasn't even in effect. It was adopted, but it wasn't in effect. And it never happened, but that's not how our world works right now. Social media is mean, cruel, and vicious, and we have to do different things. But yes, Jenny, we do talk to them about that with a plethora of other things, which are on your list as well, right? So.
Sorry, can I just ask a question?
Yes.
You talked about the victimization, the vindictiveness of the federal government. What percentage of the county budget is federal funding?
$700 million of federal funding out of our $2.5 billion budget. So we have a $2.5 billion budget, $700 million of federal funding. The changes that have happened through HR 1, some of them, and I don't know, maybe I'm like a cynical citizen that said they made changes that weren't going to go into effect until after their elections in 2026, right? Well,
That's not being cynical, that's being honest.
That's not being honest. I was like, wait, why do that? But the truth is, we had impact immediately, right? Not as for our budget. So for changes for certifications like Medicaid certifications that have to happen, they happen once a year now. And then I think we're behind. I can't remember how far behind we are, but we are still behind. We're not alone. There's a bunch of folks, counties that are behind because that certification is difficult. That's problem hit us now in this year's budget, because now I gotta figure out a way to double the staff or figure out ways to using AI and that kind of thing to be able to certify people faster. So yes, those impacts, $700 million of impact. We had $26 million of a fund that was being utilized for people who were formerly homeless. They were being housed, and that was getting paid for under a specific program, and that ended, right? And that could have had a problem for $26 million worth of people. Can't remember the number of actual individuals that was, but that was 26 million people who would have ended up being homeless, right? Right? So, I mean, it's like all of these little impacts, and we're not even gonna talk about the healthcare impacts, because, you know, for us in our county budget, part of the challenge for us, our health insurance costs went up $65 million last year. Between last year, for the 25 budget, for the 26 budget, $65 million. We can't control that, right? So if we have our 7 hospitals in Westchester County that have people that no longer have insurance, they show up at the most expensive care, which is the emergency room, right? They show up in the emergency room, but they also show up in the worst condition. So they need the most help in the most condition. And by the way, in the emergency room, they can't turn somebody away, right? So they get help, the people get the assistance that they need, and the hospital doesn't get paid, right? Which makes the cost go up for all of us. So again, there's all these things that someone, when they do a slide rule, they look at it and they don't see. So yes, there's a lot of impact for us that we have to keep moving with. And one of those things, that is one of your questions, so I don't want to forget this one, because I know it's a big one, right? Is what things are going on with flooding. So let me make sure I have my exact question correctly. So the question gets to be about all of the flooding that has happened and the kind of things, the Army Corps project, the mysterious Army Corps project, the ubiquitous Army Corps project. How many years is the Army Corps project? I've forgotten now, right? Somebody will tell me 30 years with.
No.
Longer?
Less.
Less?
2007.
2007, okay. So it'll be 20 years, and it was 19 years, we're going into 19 years now, right?
But it's happening.
But it is happening, but it's happening because of a lot of people working together to try to make a difference, to identify different things that are happening. So if you think about the things that need to happen for the bridge that we're getting ready to do, we're taking Ward Avenue, we took $18 million of county money. George promised that, and we continue to make sure that investment is there. You know, Amy asked me, like Nora said, you guys are moving away from the 18 million. The mayor said that, the supervisor said, no, that's not the case. We know that it's a part of the puzzle, and part of the puzzle is how we have the matching dollars that happen, and can we utilize the matching dollars, the $18 million to help match dollars, and we're waiting for the federal government to do the Army Corps to certify something, but we're also waiting for the state to do some things. So we are working all those things, and Emily spends a lot of time, right, with everyone and Joan to make sure that we're moving that forward, because it's important. I mean, you look at things and people get frustrated in government. I said it about one thing about being cynical about government. It's like, it takes a long time to do stuff. Does it really need to take that long to do things? No, it doesn't, but for certain things it does, especially when you're talking about flooding and the impacts. So when you think about it, I think about it, it's like the one house, I don't know how many people live in that multifamily house that needs to be taken out, because in order for the landing place and the park to happen. It's like, all right, where do the folks go? It's like, well, we should have that in the plan. It's not just the bridge work, it's not just the widening of culverts and making sure that, it's like, all right, what's the unintended or intended impact in making sure that happens? All right, so now we go to that house, we say, you know what, we're gonna take this house by eminent domain, and those folks are gonna move somewhere. Where? And that should be part of the plan, and that's a part of, yes, an affordable housing question, that's part of it as well. If you go into the flats, or into Washingtonville, and there's flooding that happens all the time because it's a floodplain and that's what it's supposed to do, how do we fix that problem and say to somebody, guess what, the only solution to this is you gotta move. No one wants to hear that, especially when the median house price in Westchester County is 950. Yes, we all wince at that. It's like, what do you mean the median house price is $950,000, right? It's a little more than that, but I just want to round. But how do you take those folks out and do that? So we have to have that in our mind, and we do, right? Like we say to, whether it's to the village or to the town or to our neighbors, say, how do we make sure that the consequences are not, oh, wait a second, these folks have to move, they have to uproot their families that have lived there for X period of time to solve this problem. And we have to do that. So we're gonna keep working through that, and it's a slow trudge, but it's trudging, it's moving forward. People we don't believe it's like, all right, we'll put a shovel in the ground and show someone that we're doing some stuff. We have other projects that we can show. We can show downstream a little bit at Glen Island. And that was the Department of Public Works holiday event last night, where they're telling us that everything is on schedule, right, down at Glen Island. I was like, we like to hear that, under promise, over deliver, right? We'll see what that means at the end of the day. But for flooding, flood mitigation, working with the state, working with the Environmental Bond Act, working with Shelley and Amy, and trying to figure out ways working with the state government. They're making changes at the state government level. Friends of ours are in different places, so we try to continue to be, for Westchester, the good children. That's what we actually say, by the way. We say we're the good children, so that you can ask us to do things, and we can ask you to do things and try them out. So for affordable housing, everybody wants to make sure that we have some local preferences. There is not a municipal official, don't raise your hand because it's not, there's not a municipal official in the villages, in the towns, in a hamlet, in a city, that doesn't want to have some local preferences. Well, we had that first example of a glimpse of it that happened in Mamaroneck, and now we've been able to take that piece of puzzle and put it into actual practice and see that. Emily was standing about where she is now when we were in White Plains. In White Plains, in two units, that the hard fight that Emily started by herself, by the way, right, to talk about having affordable housing ownership opportunities, right? So it's not just about rentals, it's ownership, etc. But it started in a place where we said we need to have local preferences, because our friends in Mamaroneck and our friends in New Rochelle, the ones in New Rochelle that are building a ton of stuff, I was going to use a different word, but it's early, right? They're building a ton of things, and as far as affordable housing is concerned, they're like, we need local preferences. We have our folks that live here, they can't get involved in this. So we worked with the state, because we're the good children, to be able to get in place something that matched what the state offered for the people that were victims of flooding, consistent flooding, like in the flats in Washingtonville, etc., to do that, and did that in White Plains, right? Where we have 25% that are for public employee level people that live in public housing, that kind of things. Like, wow, that's one side. And then another 25% for people that were victims of flooding, et cetera, to be able to get into this local preference. 50%. We had a meeting at White Plains Public Library, a public information session that happened 2 weeks ago. I'm a week off just because I was on vacation last week, so don't mind me if I said last week and it was really 2 weeks ago, right? 2 weeks ago at the White Plains Public Library, a room full of people that were in there with the developer, with Chance Mullen from Housing Action Council, who took over the Housing Action Council after Rose Union's passing, but she had already retired and passed. It's like 100, 150 people in the room for affordable housing. 1,200 people on each one of those lists for the ownership opportunities. There's never a project that we do with affordable housing that doesn't have thousands of people that apply for it. We put a home seeker program, put a new program in place to make sure that everyone could see every affordable housing place everywhere in Westchester, and they didn't have to kind of guess and know somebody who knew somebody, etc., and still get that done. We need to continue to move that on. One of the goals I have for this year is to do two things that we've done and we haven't done at the same time. We do a lot of work on mandated services that we are required to do, right? We have no argument about doing that stuff, but we love doing it. But we also have to do things for the people that aren't in those service categories. The biggest thing, do you know what the biggest thing that we do for people that aren't receivers of service of Westchester County right now? Take a wild guess of what that is. Parks. Who said it? Parks, right? Yes, good. You get another bagel too. Right? And libraries. Well, there's no question that we invest in it. But the biggest thing that we do is put money in. That's why we always call it the nationally accredited and award-winning park system. But that 18,000 acres, 52 parks, 51 different facilities, that's what we do in general for people that don't necessarily utilize the services. Well, I got to do more for that, right? So what we're doing this year, not just the affordable housing side, where we created a new fund, which was the Flex Fund, but it was Flex Fund 2, to be able to take those projects that we have listened to the municipalities that are adopted, that are moving forward, saying how can we make sure they get across the line when they have supply chain income increases or cost increases, or interest rates that are going up and down, and making sure that those things could work and pencil out. Well, I also got to do something for the folks that are in the community that don't need any of that service, right? So we have a few folks that might be getting to the place that there are empty nesters, right? And they want to stay in the community. I don't know if Emily would tell you her story, right? It's like staying in the community. Like you grew up, you had your kids, you all the you want to stay, right? And you may want the condo, you know, the condo, and you don't want the townhouse thing, and you don't have to do that. How do I make sure that that can happen? How do I make sure that I sit down with a bunch of developers that want to build this? I'm telling you, I was at an event and the developer was telling me, it was a wedding, right? We're sitting there and the developer was telling me that they were selling their house in North Castle, right? I'm not gonna say which hamlet, but they were selling their house in North Castle, and they wanted to buy something in Westchester, and they couldn't do it. They were like, listen, I'll build it myself. I'll build the community. Well, oh no, this person was, you know, big dog developer. They can do it, right? And they've done several. And they were like, we want to go to a municipality, work with the municipality, build the kind of housing that's necessary for not low income, not affordable housing, but housing for people that want to downsize and stay here in our little bubble in Westchester that we fight so hard to protect. And we're gonna do that, right? We're gonna bring those developers together, come up with a plan, working with Blanca Lopez, another hometown hero here, right? You know, with Blanca Lopez and our planning department, and figure out a way with the developers without us having to spend any money. The county's not spending more money or investing money into that. What the county is doing is bringing those resources together so that the people that are paying for the services that we deliver can continue to be here in Westchester, enjoying the things because they want to be here, right? Not because they're being forced to go to Florida or anything like that, or any other place, but trying to do that. And we're not even gonna talk about our kids, right? Who can't afford to come back and live here. They gotta live in the basement with us while they're saving money to be able to find something. We gotta do a better job with that. So we're doing that. So while we're working on that, while we're working on dealing with the federal government and trying to do matrix moves, trying to be as flexible as possible, continuing to support our business community, so our chambers of commerce, making sure that the beauty of Westchester, and one of the things for me, I get to see that, right? Being able to go around to the 45 different municipalities and see everything, and see how many things are similar, right? You know, everyone has their main street, but I will tell you that, Fabian will tell you that we go to different places, he goes, wait, they have that here, right? And we're talking about whatever things are happening, whether it's the truck and street things that are happening, you have a farmer's market, everybody has a farmer's market, but everyone has a little bit of a different twist on that, some different chambers of commerce, and we're gonna keep investing in that because we know how important that is for all of our municipalities. Again, the thing that keeps me up is just it's not about money. It's not about trying to figure out ways for us to be more creative and working together and partner together. That's not what keeps me up. What keeps me up is saying, how do I make sure that everyone in Westchester, and make sure that we're protecting the bubble, right? That we're protecting our little piece of the rock here when we're watching a lot of drama happen around. And whether that is because of conflicts that have nothing to do with us here directly, whether that's communities that are in fear, and they shouldn't be, because nobody should be afraid to be who they are, display their religious feeling, that no one should do that. Was at something last night, someone was like, you know, we have to have the police outside. It's like, no one should feel that they need to have the police outside for a party, unless the police are being invited to the party. And you gotta have donuts for the police. That was a side joke. That's not really true, but you do have donuts this time of year, right? I had the jelly donut last night. Right? It was really good, right? Yes, Jane.
To add to the list of people who we need to find, housing for, we have a big issue here in the town of Mamaroneck because we rely heavily on our volunteer responders, the volunteer firefighters and EMTs, and when they start out as young kids, they can afford to live here because they live with their parents, and then they price out of the home and park apartments, but they still can't afford to live here, and we can't afford to have them living 45 minutes away and responding to fire, so I don't know if there's some workforce housing category that we can
Well, that's a great example of what we were able to do in White Plains. The housing was for folks that were public employees, volunteer EMTs, all those kind of things. So we were able to do those kind of opportunities without excluding a group of people, right? So especially with the volunteers, whether it's firefighters or EMS workers that are volunteers, we keep working with our state legislators to do things like first make it an official emergency, put it into the first responder category, and continue to do that. But again, guess what? We're working on that. Again, that's what keeps me up at night to say, how do we do that? How do we make sure that people can talk to each other? How can people make sure that especially when they don't agree, to be able to agree to disagree and be able to have conversations like we used to be able to have and say, all right, we're just not gonna agree on the Jets this year.
Or the Giants.
Or the Giants. I was gonna wear my Bills. I was gonna wear my Bills hat today, right? Because that's the only real New York team anyway. You only say that when the teams are bad, right? When the Jets and the Giants are bad, we're like, the only real New York team is the Buffalo Bills. So it's like they're the only ones that actually are in. I was like, stop, right? But again, we keep working as hard as we can, and that's what keeps me up, to make sure that the conversations happen. And whether those are interactions with police, that may not go the way that people see when they see a little snippet, but they don't see the whole thing. And trying not to say something every time for everything before we get information. That's the hardest thing to do for at least in my side of the world, that we keep having people wanting to respond to everything. It's like sometimes there's nothing to be said. Right? So I saw the little article today that said, "We demand Ken Jenkins make a statement." I'm like, that's nice. There's two people that could do that, and both of them are in the ground for a long time, right? That was mom and dad, right? My wife could ask, right? And I'm probably gonna be smart enough so I don't have to come live in Larchmont, Mamaroneck and say yes, right? But at the end of the day, we can do that. I'm happy to take questions, additional questions from anyone. Yes. Good morning.
Good morning. Ken, I'm going to ask a question about the special districts.
Yes.
We here in Larchmont and Mamaroneck, particularly parts of these two areas that are in the New Rochelle district, we pay on average about twice what the county average is for the special districts, particularly the sewer districts. What's being done to make that a more even situation?
Well, I know that we have had, there's two things. So the question is really about the special districts and about the impacts between special districts like the New Rochelle Sewer District. Some of you live in the New Rochelle District, even though you're like, wait, we don't live in New Rochelle. It's like the New Rochelle Sanitary Sewer District, Wastewater Recovery District, Water Resource Recovery District, whatever we're calling it. What we are doing is we're trying to work with all of those local municipalities that are in the New Rochelle District. And we have had legislation that's got adopted at the state level, right?
That's right.
Yes, that they'll be able to see how we can work and say with those local municipalities, because everyone's not in the same place. Some municipalities have made resources investments, but everyone hasn't. And what we've been trying to do which is the difficult dance and challenge, is to say, how do we make sure that those districts that have been imbalanced, because there's not, the largest district is the Yonkers one, right? The one that for the Yonkers plant, that's by far the largest one. If you didn't make investments because your legislators fought hard to say, we saved money by not investing into those wastewater recovery facilities in the separate special districts, you have an imbalance. Then you also have the imbalance of whatever things the local municipality had to do to get to those lines, right? So the local laterals, how did that work? Everybody's not in the same place. So the legislation that we have that signed requires everyone to be in the same place before we actually move forward on the next step of it, which is to say, let's do a trial and figure out how to even out those numbers, right, for the people in this district and the county trying to take that over, right? And that's really the challenge we're at right now. So there's not an easy answer to say, here's what we're gonna do, because there's been the imbalance for over the years to say, how do we get to that? We have a Save the Sal lawsuit that was an addition to that, and how do we move forward? So we're going to look some more about realizing how to fix that problem, because the inflows and infiltration has different impacts. And we're gonna try to look at the Environmental Bond Act to be able to use resources there, to be able to afford that, to break the price down. Because I did say the thing that we hate going to places, elected officials and county legislators are up again next year, because God has a plan to torture them. Catherine's like, but not me, I'm good, right? But the challenge is that who raised your taxes and why? And nobody wants to be the one holding the bag on that, right? What we've been able to do, and what we were able to do this year, is be able to have a conversation, not in October, not in November, but through the whole year, to let people know, here's what's been happening, right? To say to people, it's not realistic to think that for 7 years you can keep not having any more resources. The gum I buy in the store doesn't cost the same as it did 7 years ago, right? Forget about actual food that we do, it doesn't cost the same. So being able to have a conversation with people and say, it costs more. Here's how much it's gonna cost more for this county government, $3, right? It's like, people are like, oh, well, that's not a bad thing on a $500,000 home, $3 a month. That's like, that's it, right? It doesn't even cover the cost of my, like, Starbucks. If I go to Starbucks, I don't, by the way. I'm just, right, I just was using an example, right? I think that's the challenge, right? The challenge is that for the local municipalities in the New Rochelle district, the 4 of them that have made the level of investments. In one of those municipalities, they just had a municipal change overall, and one of them just added a member of a different party, right, to their team that was in the manor, in Pelham Manor. And here we kind of are cruising along. So we're trying to get that information. We're waiting, because I got nice emails that said, hey Ken, welcome back, right, from your vacation, and what's going on with this thing. So we're gonna hear some more information that you'll hear about the New Rochelle district and how we're gonna be able to move forward. I will tell you that we made this thing that we're not gonna put a bullseye on any community, right? So it's everybody or it's nobody. So we're gonna continue to do that work to be able to answer your question, which is how do you fix an imbalance in the system when it's a size issue too. It's not just, I don't know who made up the lines and said, okay, these communities should be in this wastewater recovery facility district, but we have to do that. The county's gonna keep investing. Our capital budget this year is $628 million. $628 million of capital projects, divided about a third in health and safety, a third in water and sewer, and then a third in other road projects that we have going on. So it's a lot of stuff. Yes, sir.
Yeah, switching topics totally. How is the county addressing reckless, excessive speed on the parkways?
I don't know. I don't know if maybe is he talking about the Sprain International Raceway? Now, we actually talked through this. Hugh Grecian, who's a rye guy, Commissioner Hugh Grecian said that the best things that happen on our parkways is that they're windy and curvy. That when you make the road straight, like the Sprain, you make it the Sprain International Raceway, right? And I'm not joking about that. There's days that we're driving up and then people are blowing by us, and I drive with the police, right? and he's doing 70 or whatever, and somebody's blowing by him or her. So what we're trying to do with that is the roads that we control. And what road is that? There's only one. The road that we control is the Bronx River Parkway. We patrol on the other 2 parkways, not all 3. We don't patrol on the sawmill, at the whole sawmill. What we're trying to do is that every one of those roads have not only license plate readers, they have the license plate readers, they know how fast people are going, and we can get permission from the state on certain roads to use the speed cameras on ours, but we have to have permission to do that. And then we'll send someone a ticket. However, I will say with the red light cameras, whether it's red light cameras or the school bus cameras, I know we heard from folks around the room on issues with constituents with the red light cameras, the school bus cameras, and we're trying to do a little better, right? Because they look at them and they have a process for people to appeal. That's not making you go and, the owner of the car, not the driver of the car, the owner of the car, go to court, et cetera, et cetera. So we're trying to get that together. So yes, we're working on the speed cameras and things like that, that they can send you tickets, but that is, the first time that happens to you, that happened to me years ago in Maryland, coming out the tunnel, and I think I was doing 52 and it was supposed to be 50, and I was like,
Really?
what? Well, but I was like, yeah, but I still was going over 50, and I was just like, all right, let's just pay the $20 ticket, right, whatever, right? But that's what we're gonna try to do to help slow that down. Again, the engineers tell us, like I said, Hugh Grecian's like, the best thing for us is the windy road that we have on our parkways, and depending on the roadway, like if you get up on 9, before you get up to 9A, the road is so tiny that, there's places on the Bronx River I move over because I'm like, this just feels too tight, right? In my little SUV, right? But we're gonna keep working on it, right? And again, for the local municipalities, I know that many went down to 25. I just saw this morning when I was watching the news this morning that in Central Park they're going to 15, right? Like, all that sounds good, but unless there's someone enforcing the law, that it doesn't matter, because people are just gonna blow by and see, let's get away with it if we can. But we just try to tell folks to slow down. And then let's all try to be good examples of that, because I know every once in a while, the phone rings in the car and everyone doesn't like using on the CarPlay or Android Auto, whatever it is. Don't pick up the phone, don't do it. Just say, hey Siri, answer, or whatever, and do it that way. That's the best we can do. Yes?
I have a question with regards to the Asian American community, especially also Asian hate. There's a lot of, in a lot of areas now, there's a lot of people with misinformation. And information that we used to be able to gather at the federal level is not going to be able to find. I'd like to be able to address these questions in my community because the level of anxiety about safety is disproportionately high relative to what data was last available in 2019. So in the Department of Justice Criminal Victimization Report, that was the last time we reported the race of the victims and the race of the assailant. After the 2019 report, which was based on 2018 data, in 2020 we had the pandemic. And because of the pandemic, there was a lot of sensitivity about this issue. Asian Americans were wholesale taken out of the report in 2020. Okay? So in 2021, I was hoping that information would be restored under the Biden administration. Instead, the information on race was taken out altogether in the first year. Subsequently, it was restored back to the last Trump reporting, which in every other part of the report, it lists Asian Americans as, for the demographic data, except for that one chart, which helps me to address concerns in the community about their safety. Where are they really being attacked? Are they just to have actual data than to have hearsay? And that information has not been restored at all at the federal level. I understand that every state reports information to the Department of Justice.
Yep.
New York State, I presumably is still collecting that data. How can I obtain just the New York data to address concerns of Asians in New York?
I don't know, but what we can do is Emily's standing right behind you. She's going to give you a card, and then we're going to be able to follow that up with you individually. One of the things, again, that we continue the hallmark, which started in 2018 with George, but we all have all consistence with this, that we try to get back to everybody, even when it's a bad question for us, right? It's like somebody's like, we don't wanna answer bad things, don't bring me any bad news, I'm not gonna sing for you, right? That's the whiz, by the way. Don't bring me any bad news. We answer questions all the time. And again, whether it's a good answer, whether it's a positive answer, or whether it's just the thing, the best answer is yes, but the second best answer is no, right? It's like, if I say, let's look into it, we're gonna look into it, and then we're gonna get back to you. In this particular case, we'll find out what the issues might be. The person that would do that for us just got promoted, so she's cool people. That's Jackie Bray, by the way. She just got promoted to being the Secretary of State, is it Operations? Director of Operations for the state. And the person who was there before, Catherine Garcia, went to the Port Authority, which is very cool things for her, you know, good for her, but it's also good for us there, Port Authority, and with the security things. We'll work with DCJS and Department of Criminal Justice Services to find that answer. All right. Two more, right? Yes, Lois, how are you?
Okay, how are you, Ken?
Good.
What about the libraries in your budget?
The library's in our budget. The library, we
I mean, almost everybody here, I think, uses the library.
The library continues to be in the budget. We continue to fund the Westchester library system because we fund it at the top. We don't fund individuals, although there are some specific projects that are capital projects that we're working with the local municipality on to do some things in the library, right? So, yes. So the money hasn't changed. I don't remember what the number is, but we have it. I was gonna say it's around $1 million. Right. We haven't changed that number, right? It's been that same number across the board. We went from a place where we had about $9 million of additions that happened from the Board of Legislators, right? And over the years, what the tradition was that the executive, whether that was Andy Spano, who came up 2 weeks ago, had lunch with them, he's awesome, right? It's gonna be 90 next year, right? The 7th County Executive, and Rob Astorino, or anybody else. We stopped that in 2018 about zeroing things out. So we went to a specific number that we would like to, as Joy would like to say, was baked into the cake, right? And that number went from $3 million, and last year was $9 million. It was $3 million. I think 2019 was the number that we had. Was that 2019 was $3 million of additions to local nonprofits that went to $9 million. So we had to do some adjusting. The Board of Legislators were able to review the investments that we were making, especially when we were doing all these cuts across the board, and that's where we are now. But the library has $1 million, and it's been that way almost since I've been on the Board of Legislators since 2007.
What about the senior citizens? Is there any?
But there's no senior citizen things that are going on just because I'm not a senior citizen yet. Well, y'all know that's not true, by the way. I'm 64, all right? So, right? No. I got my card at 50. That's as soon as you get the AARP card, you're in, right? So we're going to continue to. You got a while yet, right? The reality again is that we have continued to do so many things with senior programs and services because again, we got to make sure, and that gets back to the place I said, and I didn't say it specifically about seniors. I just said it in general. The people that are in the category that are going to be empty nesters are usually in that senior category. How do I make sure that we do this investment? How do we work with local municipalities? We did a complete street program, right? The complete street program sounds like, it's like, oh yeah, we're talking about the cars. No, it's talking about the sidewalk, right? It's talking about doing curb cuts to make sure that if you have a walker or you have a stroller or you have a cart, that you're able to get on the sidewalk without getting, going too crazy. What other things we're doing with our seniors, I went to the airport, because I told you I just went on vacation and came back, and we left out at the county airport. And we were sitting behind, we came in early because we paid attention, right? We got there 2 hours early, a whole 9 yards. And we went inside, we're sitting down waiting, and it's like, oh wait, let's go to the restroom. It's like, there's 2. I was like, what? It's like, there's 2 real restrooms. I mean, like here. There's more restrooms here at the diner than there are behind behind the security at the airport. Outside the security, there's a regular full big restaurant, but it's like, wait, what? It's like, and there wasn't any place to sit down.
I know.
Right? And, oh well, and we're gonna fix that, right?
I hope
And we're gonna fix that in modernizing the airport. That's not expanding the airport, but we're gonna do some things, and Emily just sent over the first set of things to take a look at, and we'll get to that. So for seniors, Lois, we're gonna continue to make those investments. I hope some of you are at Senior Hall of Fame. I'm sure that some of you are past awardees for the Senior Hall of Fame because of all the hard work that you all do here in the summit. If not, we'll make sure to have some cool elected officials make sure to make a recommendation on people that could be nominated for the Senior Hall of Fame because of the hard work they do in the community. But we continue to do that. The Omni program, no one asked me about the Omni program, but the Omni program has some really cool discounts that are part of it for seniors and for different categories of people. Free rides, all kinds of stuff, reduced rides, paratransit. We're doing all kinds of things because we want to make sure that everybody who wants to stay here in Westchester gets to do so, right? And that means we got to do some things working with our local municipalities, working with our friends, and being able to protect our houses. I mean, people are not leaving. They're not. They're staying. They're staying in Westchester. Cool, right? What do we do as people are aging in place? What do we do to make things different? How do we change our systems to be able to impact folks in a positive way? How do we continue to do what we do for seniors right now? We do TIPS, the telemedicine program where people don't have to get anywhere. They can pick up the phone and get assistance and be able to get direction. How do we make sure that people are protecting things from not just Senior Hall of Fames, that we have the senior things that are happening where we're making sure that people are protecting their resources to be able to be in place? Because, while Regeneron can make us live for a really long time, we're not going to live forever, right? So how do we do that? How do we take care of families that have special needs children, right? That they're going to be, their provider is going to be gone. How do we make sure that that happens? How do we deal with people with Alzheimer's and all those kind of things? How do we take care of all of us here that are taking care of family members to make sure that they're making a difference? So, I know I went over time, but that's because I was late, right? So I felt that I should give the whole time. Thank you again.